welcome to Healthy, Fit, and Pain Free Pittsburgh. I'm your host, Brian Wade. We got a very special episode for you today. Before we get started with Dr. Bordick and Miss Michelle Lagree from Case-Specific Nutrition, I want to remind you that Healthy, Fit, and Pain Free Pittsburgh is brought to you by Case-Specific Nutrition, our friends and pals over there. The registered dietitian team with 6 locations located in Pennsylvania, 5 in the Pittsburgh area, as well as Inner Strength, where we are here recording today. We help people right around the 40 and above, 50 and above, 60 and above, 70 and above, 80 and above.
Hopefully we get 100 at some point.
Hopefully we get 100. 126 is the age that I plan to live to with the option for renewal. But get back to being healthy, fit, and pain-free. Live a healthy life forever and ever. Without further ado, I am going to kind of sit back and relax today and let Doc and Michelle do their thing, but we are talking about nutrition for inflammation. And so Doc and Michelle, welcome. And I'm going to sit back and enjoy.
Yes, I get to be the center of attention today, except for Michelle, of course. So, welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. Thanks
for
having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah,
a little background.
Yeah, so I am also one of the case-specific dietitians here. I work out of this location here in Robinson. I also am at the Baum Boulevard office that we have in East Liberty, and then also do virtual consultations, which is great for, of course, COVID times, not being able to potentially get out to one of these locations. We can still certainly help and make a difference. So I've been a dietitian for about 11 years now, just also from Ohio University. I have my master's. Yeah. And then also have my master's in business administration with a healthcare emphasis. So certainly everything holistic, nutrition-wise, and also have 10 plus years of counseling, and now I'm in the private practice world. So
Lots
I'm
of
loving
bobcats
it.
up in here. I love it. I love it.
2 bobcats.
Lane is
Claire.
also, but yeah.
Oh, you're talking about...
And there's 4.
I'm talking about in the room right now.
In the room right now, but Claire
There's 2
is
bobcats.
here.
So we outnumber you right now.
I'm a slippery pebble and a golden knight. So that's what
I hope you see where that falls in the chain of command.
Bobcat, slippery pebble.
Very cool. 11 years. You old.
Hey, I feel young. That's all that matters.
That's great. Awesome. So what do you specialize in, Michelle? Like, what's your big thing that you're interested in the dietitian world?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm a very well-rounded dietitian. I do have a sports certification, so I'm a sports dietitian. I also do have some GI certifications underneath me, since I did really see the benefit of, sports athletes that were having GI issues also too. So I would say those two certainly are great kind of coupled benefit that I have experience under. I also do a lot of heart health, anti-inflammatory, GI, both diabetes, just healthy living, healthy aging, weight loss, body composition changes, just healthy living in general in terms of nutrition.
Yeah, I'll definitely say, having you here, Michelle, has greatly improved the lives and the health of a ton of our members. It's like having our own patron saint of nutrition here. It specializes, goes a bit deeper than, call it what we are. We're a team of very educated personal trainers, right? Who know a decent bit about nutrition, but definitely don't live in the nutrition world day in and day out. And that's why you're here, and that's why we love having you, and that's why so many members have had such just amazing results and had such a great impact on their lives. So thank you.
Of course.
Dietitians, not just for diabetes. Just saying.
Okay.
Correct.
Just
saying. Yeah.
Because a lot of times that's what you hear people. I hear people all the time. It's like, well, I don't have diabetes. Well, okay, there's a little bit more to that than just so.
Exactly.
Very cool.
And what's nice with, again, case specific and of the name, we really focus on the individual and their individualized nutrition plan, what that should look like. So it's not just here's a diet, bye, good luck with this, but certainly we like to follow up, continue to have that relationship, continue to actually make that long-term impact with the clients that we're working with, so that we get to see the changes and then help them overcome barriers that come up, that vacations, holidays, all those things that knock people off track, we help to get them around those and make sure that it's lifelong type changes.
Yeah, we talked to Andrew whenever he was in here, and he said, we were like, it's just super important to talk about every time we have a dietitian on. what a dietitian does, right?
Right.
Because we say we have a team of dietitians, and the first thing that we always get is like, oh, I have a nutritionist, that she gave me this list of foods, look, right? And it's like, yeah, well, no. That's exactly why we're talking about this.
Exactly. Yes. I could give someone a list, but certainly what they do with that is that question mark and making sure that, I'm really reaching out to them and making sure that they're implementing those foods in the way that works best for them, and making sure that, they like the types of foods we're adding in, and that, we make sure that if there is GI symptoms or other barriers that are coming up with eating certain foods or being able to cook certain ways, then certainly that's kind of, again, holistically what I as a dietitian help them with.
Mm-hmm. So, on that note, speaking of GI, let's talk inflammation.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times, I know from my standpoint, when we talk about inflammation, everyone thinks about, my achy joints, and I get out of bed in the morning, or at night or whatever, that my achy shoulder, my achy knee. But no one actually really thinks as much about inflammation of the gut. It's becoming a little bit more apparent, I feel, with the internet and social media. But there's a lot of, information out there that's kind of misleading. So give us a little idea of what inflammation is, Michelle, if you would, please.
Of course. Yeah, so I think, inflammation in general, I guess to put kind of an analogy on it, there's acute and then there's chronic inflammation. Like acute it actually is our body's response that helps to repair, let's say if we cut our finger. Analogy wise, let's compare that to if there's an accident on the street. You have, the police come, the firemen come, you have the ambulance come, you have the tow truck to remove the accident. You have all these kind of different factors coming in to clear the street and help to make an easier pass, let's say. So comparing that to, an acute infection, you cut your finger, you have these cells coming in through the lymphatic system to that site to help to bring down that inflammation and clear up that injury. Whereas acute, all those moving parts, let's say the ambulance, the fire truck, the police, the tow truck, all these people are coming in, all these cells are coming into that area, but then they're not leaving. It's just kind of they're staying there because the inflammation is not, something happens, another incident, let's say, happens on that street, and they're just not able to get out. So then it's that kind of continued inflammation that is, when it becomes chronic, that can lead to other health conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, just continued GI issues, that when the inflammation is not brought back down and cured, that can lead to other issues down the road.
Sounds like Pittsburgh traffic.
Exactly, yeah.
Very good. So, you mentioned about, obviously, from a cellular level, the stuff that happens with inflammation, but what do you typically see being a chain reaction as far as, someone, if they have, the inflammation from their diet or from just lifestyle in general? What do you typically see coming out of that?
Yeah, that can be, definitely different person to person on how that affects them then for lifestyle, environment. If they're inflamed and their stomach, is upset, they may not be eating at all. They may not be eating certain things that are healthy that are causing, further discomfort. They may not be able to exercise if they're in pain, to then hopefully alleviate and help with that inflammation long term. They may not be, let's say, drinking enough water, or certain things that can, help with that overall inflammation if they're in pain, if they're not, able to, let's say, if they're in pain enough to not even, let's say, go out and cook food. I see a lot of people that are in so much pain, they're tired, they want to go to bed as soon as possible, they don't want to cook a full meal at home that they feel that they need to do to eat healthy, to have that kind of anti-inflammatory diet effect.
Yeah. If you're one of those people that don't like to cook at home, Case Pacific also has a meal prep company. Just saying. Anyhow,
yes.
So yes. No, very good, very good. So you mentioned that people just don't want to cook and everything, and that really leads me to think about diet. And it's just like Ryan was talking earlier. If I'm sitting at home and I'm lethargic and I just don't feel like doing anything, I don't want to cook, but I do want to make that little change in my life. I look up on Google and I'm like, foods for anti-inflammation. Okay. And the horrendous amount of images pop up on what you should or shouldn't be eating by said computer generating nutritionist.
Yes.
Okay. What are some of those diets that might pop up, Michelle?
Yeah, certainly there's a lot that are very strict. So for someone who, is just trying to make some general healthier changes, I would avoid some of those. The autoimmune protocol diet is very strict. The AIP diet, they call it, very strict, kind of takes out foods and then adds them back in a systematic order. I use that for some of my clients if they're having GI issues, concerns, but certainly not everyone needs to, be as strict as, cutting out foods. It can be perfectly fine. I would say that is probably one diet that pops up. Another one would be the traditional Mediterranean style diet. So that's probably the most well-known diet for anti-inflammatory properties, and it's if you've heard of it, they actually kind of figured out what that was back in about the 60s when they did a global type of study on different countries. You might have heard of the blue zones, where those countries that have the longevity in terms of people were living the longest, having the healthiest lives. And they then kind of pulled what they did in terms of both, what their weights were, what their activity levels were day to day, and what their diet looked like. So that traditional Mediterranean style diet, I would say, is probably the biggest one that if you're Googling, you'll find, all the information on that. And it certainly is a very... When you think of Mediterranean style diet, people might go, oh, Italian, but certainly what traditional means is very different from the big plate of pasta, the Americanized Italian style diet. So a Mediterranean diet, more so when you're thinking of Italy, Crete, places where it originated from. What that really focuses on is fresh, whole foods, doing more herbs, spices that they're growing right there. Things like lavender, garlic, turmeric, ginger, all those things that they're spicing up their foods the right way, not just adding salt to it, like again the standard American diet.
Yeah, whenever I think of a Mediterranean diet, I think I would put myself probably in the more unfamiliar, like more just generalized with the Mediterranean. I think of lots of fish, colorful vegetables, one ingredient foods for sure, and using good healthy fats, right? And in terms of extra virgin olive oil and things like that, right? But of course not overboard, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's a decent generalization if we're trying to get that across to people? And yeah, I mean, what do you think? How do you think that kind of stands up against kind of the prescriptions that you're giving people in terms of, this is just more of a generalized consumer, right? Do you think that would be something beneficial for people to look into?
Yeah, in terms of kind of generalized, I certainly think the Mediterranean diet is definitely the golden standard in terms of a good way to eat that's not, people also, I guess, something that when people Google, they'll see like, oh, I have to eat all plants, plant-based. That's another big one that comes up for the anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory type diet. But certainly, someone can go out to McDonald's and eat just fries, a Diet Coke, things that are still vegan, vegetarian, because they don't have any meat, but they're certainly not rich in nutrients, vitamins, phytonutrients, things like that. So certainly the, kind of well-rounded benefit that the Mediterranean traditional style diet provides is, like you said, doing more lean, fresh proteins like fish that are high in those omega-3 fatty acids, then also doing more just beneficial, higher fiber. That certainly is something that I see a lot of with just the standard American diet not being higher in fiber, because we're doing very white refined starches. We're not getting beans or nuts and seeds or lentils or things in our diet that are very rich in other countries. Doing very refined refined starches and also more, added sugars, refined kind of low glycemic index type diet. Whereas the Mediterranean style kind of switches that and has at least that kind of gold standard of, they've done research studies, at least getting over 15 grams of fiber can be beneficial to help to reduce that inflammation internally, help to reduce the risk of breast cancer and other types of diseases associated with that higher inflammation long term. So that's at least getting above that 15 mark. I'd say ideally, usually for my clients, I'm looking at 25, 30 grams or so, but certainly even starting by making small tweaks like using whole grain versus a white starch, let's say wild rice versus white rice, or doing bulgur for breakfast versus cereal, or oats for oatmeal instead of cereal in the morning. That's just switching and getting you a little bit more fiber throughout the day is going to make a big impact long term when you're feeling better, when you're having less refined white starches, such as if you're having like a Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwich that, no offense, has...
How dare you knock on Jimmy Dean?
Fine in moderation was certainly...
Jimmy Dean was a good man.
The hardworking farmer.
But I do get a lot of clients that will have one of those, and they a lot of times aren't pairing it with anything, so then they're hungry an hour and a half later.
Sure.
But then B, they're not getting any fiber from that because they're using a white bun, and there's no other source of fiber in that meal. So then if they do that and then they're eating out for lunch, let's say Chinese food, then they're certainly not getting really any fiber in that bulk of their day already. So I try to even just make some small tweaks of, let's say you have a Jimmy Dean's breakfast sandwich and then you add some fiber or add some fruit into that. Let's say a cup of fruit would give you one serving of fruit for the day, and then also give you, if it's, let's say, berries, some different colored berries to give you different types of vitamins and nutrients that can also be up to like 8 to 10 grams of fiber. So great, easy way to add some in there.
Michelle, you shit on Jimmy Dean, and then you started going towards Chinese food.
I did, yes.
You're not beer, you're done.
You're not, yeah, you go beer, we're not friends anymore.
But hold on, this is actually a really good point. If I do say so myself. Americans, and again, we do a lot of consults with people, and just the case-specific nature of both these companies, right? We do a lot of just hearing our clients out. Mm-hmm. And Americans are so protective of their comfort foods. Right. So protective. Right? And
Hot Pocket.
Right. And so, whenever we are talking about what is good for our long-term health, right? It's those small changes made over time. You don't have to make these huge sweeping changes. And while you listen to this podcast, and if you're still listening 15 minutes in, and you're getting a lot of data thrown at you, a lot of information, a lot of sciencey words, right? Like, I lost my point.
We're trying to even add things in, not necessarily say you can't have the Jimmy Dean like you said, but certainly have it in moderation and try to add something that's nutrient dense to it. So you're just, as a dietitian, I never say you can't have something. That's certainly, that might be the difference between dietitian, nutritionist. Someone might give you a list of foods, whereas a dietitian tries to work with you to say, okay, I know you're busy in the morning, so if you want that Jimmy Dean's because that's quick and easy, you enjoy it, let's try to add something to it to give you just a little bit more fiber in the morning that's going to fill you up, keep you fuller longer up until lunch, and actually have a little bit more anti-inflammatory type effect properties on your body.
Yeah. Small, healthful changes made over time is the point that I was trying to make, because we can be so defensive on our Jimmy Dean and our beer and our Chinese food, which actually isn't Chinese food at all.
No. But it's funny you say that, because a lot of times, and even if we're talking like fitness, physicality wise, rather than just nutrition, is people are always expecting to take away. You always... it's even with exercise, like people start having like some sort of knee pain. The first thing they're expecting someone to do is take activity away from them. And the same thing with diet, and that's why that's why I love working with you guys, because I know whenever I talk with you and try to maybe figure something out with a member, it's not going to be, well, you should take away half of what they're eating.
Yep.
Obviously, there's a lot, typically more addition rather than subtraction.
Right.
So very cool.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, the one thing we love to do on the show is we love to have 3 key takeaways for, if there's any other advice you feel that people typically, whenever they try to go to an anti-inflammation diet, where they typically go wrong. Mm-hmm. So where do you feel like people go wrong in the little changes they could make to make it right?
Ooh, good question. I would say, for one, it would be, again, not trying to overwhelm yourself with too many changes at once. So it's starting very small with one thing a week to, okay, I'm going to add in how many servings of fruit and vegetables do I get in a day? Ask yourself that question and then say, okay, I'm at 1. I get 1 fruit a day. So let me try to add a second, maybe a cup of veggies with my dinner, or another fruit in for a dessert treat. So I would say starting small, adding, one maybe new goal in that, kind of ties in with that anti-inflammatory style diet. 2 would be to also just, again, going right along with that, small changes. If weight loss in general, at least 5%, I know we sometimes, with especially something I touch on as a dietitian, look at the people look, I need to lose 50 pounds, 100 pounds, looking way down the road. Even for weight loss, for anti-inflammatory type properties and benefits, even 5% of a weight reduction is going to have a huge dramatic effect on your inflammation on your body. So 5%, can be 10 pounds for someone. So certainly that seems more manageable short term. So looking at, making small tweaks that can, let's say week to week, losing 1 pound of weight loss per week or half a pound of weight loss per week, and slowly, gradually building to that ultimate goal that you want to get to. But that can certainly still, those small, half a pound per week weight loss changes can make a big difference. And then trying to also, with, like you said, activity, move in a way that feels good to them, whatever that looks like. If it's dancing at home, I've been doing a lot of hula hooping because
COVID has led to hula hooping as exercise.
Next week on Healthy Food Pain Free Pittsburgh, it will just be a video of myself and Tyler hula hooping.
I'll bring in my weighted hula hoop. I can assure you, everyone, they'll be sweating. But trying to just get small, let's say getting up and getting a 5-minute walk in, not again with both diet, weight loss, exercise, doing small goals in each, and small steps in the right direction in each one, like a 5-minute walk that, again, is going to make you feel much better than just sitting all day and having that sedentary style of living already increasing your risk of diseases down the road from that inflammation that you get from not moving around. So
I think it's just this incredibly overarching theme of people think to be healthy you have to go 100% in or 100% out, and it's just that's the absolutely the wrong way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's only going to create negative feelings, and which leads to negative just actions, and which leads to us ending up right back where we started. Right.
Now, one real quick thing, Michelle, we were talking a little bit before we started the podcast, and something that you brought up to me and then you mentioned earlier that I kind of want to make sure no one hits here. So when it comes to fats, people typically run towards the hill. If it's like, if it's anti-inflammation, it's either fats, or when they see a cow, they literally turn and just launch the other way.
Right.
So when it comes to fats, like, what would you recommend for people?
Yeah, that's definitely a great question, because I especially would say have seen the rise with that trend of coconut oil being the golden standard for fat, but for a fat that they're adding into their diet. But certainly that actually is false information it definitely has a lot more saturated fat than some of the better oils that you can add into your diet. Those alpha linoleic acids, those omega-3 fatty acids that come from oils like flaxseed oil, olive oil, canola oil, avocado oil, things of that nature. So those are I'd say, better oils to choose than the coconut oil that with keto has been hyped up a lot more.
How dare you? You're never coming on here again. No, that's awesome. No,
Yeah. So the alpha-linoleic acid is one good type of the omega-3 fatty acid, and then the other type that is, again, the more protein source would be the fish, that you're getting those cold water fish, things like herring, lake trout, albacore tuna, salmon, of course, being that one that everyone usually knows. But there's certainly a lot of cold water fish examples that someone can get in. Sardines, if you like sardines. So certainly that could be, you're getting the plant-based, like using good oils, the fish, and then nuts and seeds, of course, too, could be an easy way. Nut butters, to just add in a tablespoon of butter onto an English muffin in the morning and add some banana on top, and you've got a variety of different anti-inflammatory type properties, plus good fats and fiber, all within one easy snack.
Notice that Michelle said 1 tablespoon and not the whole bottle. Because
Also
I think
peanut
that's especially like peanut butter or something.
Yes.
That's where we see people go wrong. And they're like, "Why? I'm eating peanut butter. Well, that's great. Half the jar is not going to help the
Right.
goals here." So
Exactly.
And I had to I make this point a lot in the consults that I'm doing. Jif and Skippy trend more towards the candy end of the spectrum than the food end of the spectrum, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Just making that point.
Yes.
and
They're
Nutella,
the ones that
Nutella as
separate.
well.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you look for one that separates naturally, that's probably a safe assumption. That's a better one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ingredients in the back should say peanuts.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. They even do have now ones that you can even blend yourself from peanuts, and those like at Market District. So that would be easy way to know you're not getting any other added ingredients or sugar to that. Like for the creamy Jif, you would be.
Right.
Whole Foods peanut butter honey. Oh my gosh.
Also amazing. I found
Good,
that. Yes.
good shit.
Yes.
On that note, Ryan, you want to take us away?
I did want to hit this because I just am seeing a note here that I wanted to bring up earlier, and I think we skipped over it, but we kind of ended back in the fish and the oils, which brings us back to the Mediterranean. Whenever you said Mediterranean diet earlier, you brought up the word phytonutrients, right? Which is something that it makes my eyes glaze over, right? So can you explain what a phytonutrient is and why it's important?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I know people hear that term a lot, and when you break it down, phyto is the Greek word for plant, so phytonutrient, plant nutrients. So plants also have, in a sense, an immune system, if you want to think of it like that. They have things that help them survive as they're growing and trying to thrive in different conditions and weathers and whatnot. So those actually have been shown, the phytonutrients in plants that we then eat have been shown beneficial for then our immune system and help with fighting that inflammation. So phytonutrients, you can get them from even, we think of plants right away, but even like the herbs, using garlic and turmeric and lavender and basil and things of that nature. That's why, again, fresh herbs and spices, or dried, of course, too, would be fine to add to foods to just even enhance the phytonutrient and the vitamin nutrient composition of your meals that much more by having all of that, more whole.
Awesome.
Cool.
Very good. So
My eyes are not glazed over anymore.
No, I
tried
am
to
fully
simplify.
aware. And certainly some turmeric will do it a bit more.
Yes.
Anyway, so Michelle, thank you for coming on today. For those of you who kind of missed the beginning, skipped ahead, we don't judge you for it. But Michelle Lagree is our she's the case specific queen of the West, so to speak. Yeah, and so
I love that.
and so
It makes me think I'm on Game of Thrones, my own character right now.
Right, exactly. She's the queen of the West, and so
If you come in on a dragon, we could have a conversation.
Yes.
Just saying.
This has gone
Next
so
Halloween,
far.
I've got my costume down.
Hula hoops and dragons and Game of
And then I'm
Thrones.
going to have a trail of vegetables and fruits behind me.
Yes.
Look what you've done, Ryan.
It's a downward spiral from here.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you once again, Doc. As always, it's been a pleasure. And for those of you, again, still listening, Healthy Fit and Pain Free Pittsburgh, brought to you by Case-Specific Nutrition and Inner Strength Physio Fitness Athletics, where we teach you how to be healthy, happy, strong, live a long time, and continue that even after you leave our care, because, hey, that's what life's about. For myself, Doc, Michelle, the entire Case-Specific and Inner Strength fam, stay healthy, fit, and pain-free Pittsburgh.
Toodles.
Bye. That's awesome. You guys are awesome at just letting that flow.